last session of the conference dealt with tall buildings in an Asian context. Due to differences in culture and climate, the Western model of tall building design cannot simply be transplanted into an Asian context. Mun Summ Wong presented his firm's latest organic projects and how they are designed to be uniquely Asian, embracing the climate and culture to create naturally ventilated, heavily vegetated residential towers. He uses the Met in Bangkok and Newton Suites in Singapore as prime examples.
So this is what you would actually expect of a typical development. And what we did was that we started pulling the building apart and pulling the core apart, splitting the buildings into three, then vertically splitting the buildings into four segments. We have the podium, then the three zones, and each zone we split them further into three zones of 6 stories each, and they're all linked together with common sky gardens on the 28th and 47th floor, and also individual swimming pools and terrace areas on every 6 levels. So this allows us to really make the building quite perforated, allow the wind to go through it, and at the same time we're able to create a lot of green areas. We were also commissioned to do Newton Suites, which is a 36-story residential development. And here we introduce sky gardens on every 4 stories. But what is important for us here is the amount of greenery that we actually brought up the building. And here we introduce a green wall that actually runs 100 meters up the building, up all 36 stories. One of the best compliments we got for the project was actually a complaint from one of the home owners. They complained there was too many insects, and one of the kids was stung by bees. And that's actually proof that the vertical green actually does work. We do get lots of birds and bees all the way up 36th story of the building.
Wong also described the facade of another project which rejects the Western model of a completely sealed glass curtain wall in place of what he calls the Monsoon Window.
Singaporeans do enjoy the fresh air in the high-rise buildings, but they don't usually open their windows because you can't tell when it would rain. So this window system that we came up with actually allows people to actually use, or rather keep their windows open all the time. So basically, it's adapted from a vernacular device from a longhouse in Indonesia that you can see on the left side of the screen, and then our interpretation of it, where we actually evolved it and incorporated into the curtain wall system.
Russell Gilchrist of SOM then presented on the Pearl River Tower in Guangzhou, China. This tower incorporates the latest sustainable technologies and engineering in an attempt to create the world's most energy-efficient high-rise structure. Russell explained that the first step was to be smart about siting the building.
This is our site. It's to the east of the main downtown area, and you can see the Pearl River, at the base of the slide. The climate is subtropical, so that's a challenge too in terms of what systems one might use and employ. But one of the key planks, and I've alluded to it twice already, is that there's certain things that are just no-brainers, really. Building siting is a key issue. We're obviously quite close to the equator there, or much closer than we are in Northern Europe or America. So, the sun is actually passing fairly high over the building during the summer months, so that's a factor. One of the key drivers was that on our particular site, and because the building is the height it is, and because it's adjacent to a huge area of open space, we can take advantage of prevailing winds from the south that occur 10.5 months of the year.
Another key component of the design was to develop the form of the tower to optimize the harvesting of wind energy.
We've actually placed the wind turbines at a third of the way up and 2/3 of the way up, because at one level it makes most sense to put them at the very top of the building where the wind speeds are highest. But actually the shape and form of the building is such that what we've done, wrong slide, I've actually gone out of sequence here. The building is curved on its two broad faces, and what happens is there's a negative energy on the north face, or the leeward side, that builds up, and the approaching wind effectively gets sucked through those apertures because of this negative effect that happens with the wind patterns, is actually meant that even relatively benign winds, 2-3 meters a second, because of this effect of the suction through the apertures, that's a function of its cubed root. So even a 2 meter per second wind is actually 8 meters a second going through the wind turbine. So you can see very quickly, and that's what really that diagram is trying to represent, is you can get some fairly serious wind speeds from some fairly benign winds.
As a lead-in to the next Ctbuh conference, the Remaking of Sustainable Cities in the Vertical Age, held in Mumbai, India, February 3rd through the 5th, 2010, the concluding presentation by a representative of the Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority looked at the city of Mumbai and how it is attempting to deal with the pressures of a huge population growth superimposed on an infrastructure that is underdeveloped and out of date. He described some of the initiatives the city is taking, as well as the role tall buildings can play in a city's redevelopment.
The transformation process is basically moving on two-pronged strategy, creating affordable housing stock. That's one of the major demand in the city. Then sustainable infrastructure development. Current scenario in high-rise developments in Mumbai, about 1,000 odd tall buildings are existing in Mumbai city. When I say tall buildings, these are 20-plus storied buildings. 270 are under consideration, and 70 are in planning. These are some of the sites. Nearly 200 more high-rise buildings are expected in the next 5 years in the metropolitan region. Our aim is to create more per capita space of living and workspaces, open spaces, transport and infrastructure.
What is the cost of the plants when you install them on a building?
The system that we have adopted for the vertical landscaping is actually quite similar to how you do it on the ground level. Like the one at Newton Suites, though it's 100 stories, there's a planter and a service walkway on every level. So it's actually no different from as if it's on a ground level building.
What is India doing related to building codes, especially in the high-rise world where if something goes wrong, it goes wrong in a big way?
We insist on national building code to be followed for construction purposes, building construction. At the same time, for government projects, we stipulate that wherever the national building code provisions are not available, we refer to British codes, then American codes. A hierarchy is provided in all the bidding documents.
I have a question for the Pearl River Tower. When that building is completed and becomes online, are you planning to do documentation or recording of the energy use or the energy conservation that might be usable for other people in this room? Or
We hope to, is the answer to that. At this moment in time, we don't actually have that service, but I meant it's kind of important for us to have it anyway, because it's all very well telling people like yourself and others how a building might perform, but we do need the empirical data to be able to persuade people who are maybe less convinced.